learn what happens when you choose the 3-star option, and I'll get into the next stop on the apology tour. My name is Mike Seibert, and this is 40 for 40, Transformers the Movie.
You got the touch!
2 years in the making, unlike anything ever seen on television. Spectacular animation with an original story that will shock and surprise you. It opens everywhere August 8th. Transformers, the movie. A monster planet destroys everything in its path, while Megatron and Prime fight to the death. Starring Leonard Nimoy and Judd Nelson, with songs by Weird Al Yankovic and Stan Bush. Don't miss it. Transformers, the movie. Rated PG. Opens at theaters everywhere August 8th.
I have nothing but contempt for this twisted justice. That is the iconic moment that we're talking about today, but I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to combine a few different similar moments together into one consolidated conversation about the world of the Savage Sharkticons and their cruel masters, the Quintessons, as told to Kup and Hot Rod by Kranix, obviously the last survivor of Lithone, after the pair are taken captive when the universal greeting did not work on the Alligator Cons or the Allicons or whatever they're called. I think the names are like intertwined or something like that. I've always had those crossed up in my brain. So sometimes they're Alligator Cons, sometimes they're Allicons. I think the toy actually says Allicons. So I suppose that's probably what I should be calling them, because that's what they have said what their name is. So before we get too far into this, all year long, Hasbro, via their official Transformers channels on social media, they have been putting up fun video clips and memes, all as part of their year-long celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Transformers the movie. It's a marketing campaign that they are calling the Apology Tour, which I personally think is really clever and brilliant, but not every fan thinks so. But I personally, I mean, because again, I've talked about this before, the one of the themes and the reasons for the season, and the reason for me doing this podcast is that this movie has been with me for as long as I can remember. You know, when I saw it at 7 years old, I've been back to it multiple times, and I've talked a lot before about how this movie is a specific touchstone for me, more so than any other movie. I was out grabbing beers with a buddy recently, and he's not a fan of Transformers the movie. He was a little too old for Transformers when they first came around, but every time I see him, one of the first things he says is, "Man, I've been digging me some 40 for 40." And so, and I've heard similar feedback from other folks as well. There's something about this project and this movie that kind of clicks and resonates with folks. But anyway, the point being is that didn't realize that there was as much meat on the bone with regards to Transformers the movie, and we kind of got to talking about what sets this movie apart from others, and he kind of went on this I don't know, kind of existential journey of trying to ascertain for himself what other movie would inspire him to do this style of comprehensive content, talking this much about the movie, because obviously, as you've heard and as you know, this movie means a lot to me. And not only that, there's a lot to talk about with it. You know, it has like a deep legacy, and some of like the themes and the behind the scenes stuff, and you know, there is, just to borrow my own phrase, just so much meat on this bone, even more so than I will ever get to this year. I was joking with my buddy Anthony Bricali on over Messenger. I was like, yeah, by the time I think I finish this project, I think I will have said everything I need to say about Transformers the movie. And, you know, sitting here and writing notes and getting ready to record and editing, like my process with 40 for 40 here is like, I have like a constant state of multiple plates spinning. It's like, I've written some episodes, I've recorded some episodes, I've edited others. So I have like this like constant 3 phases of production that I've been working on for the last couple months. But I've realized even after all of this, like, spoilers, there's only 40 episodes of 40 for 40. And there's more than 40 moments, even when I'm cheating like I am here by trying to squeeze a couple together. There's going to be moments and parts of this movie that I'm not going to be able to get to cover within the context of this project. So there'll always be stuff left on the table there. But anyway, I was having drinks with my buddy, and he's a huge JCVD fan, Jean-Claude Van Damme. He likes Bloodsport and Kickboxer, and even on his own podcast, I'll just shout him out here. You know, it's my old buddy from work, Camaro Kev, and his podcast, Stack of Dimes and You Blew It, has basically kind of gone through chronologically the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I think they're currently up to Street Fighter, if I'm not mistaken. But anyhow, it's the thing that he said. He's like, well, maybe Bloodsport, maybe Kickboxer. In terms of like this style of analysis and commentary. And then we both kind of landed on it at the same time. We just kind of looked at each other. It's like, oh, it's Star Wars, isn't it? And I think for our generation, the mid 40s to even early 50s at this point, that's probably as much of a cultural touchstone as, say, Transformers the movie is to me here and my friends. I would anticipate I will have commentary after seeing The Mandalorian and Grogu. I have not as of this recording, but I'm sure I will have some commentary to add here within the context of my commentary and analysis of Transformers the movie, as that is also a TV to movie continuation. So I'll be very interested to see how I grade that and kind of how I look at Star Wars. Golly willikers, I really kind of slipped into a tangent here. I'm like Frank Welker, I'm trapped in a cave. But no, Hasbro. Okay, so back to Hasbro and their social media. I think I remember why I got so side tangent, because old Camaro Kev was asking me about, like, what is this apology tour stuff? I don't understand what it means. And some of the criticism of the Hasbro's marketing campaign to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Transformers the movies, that they're taking the word apology in the apology tour a little too literally. It's like, well, man, Hasbro should be apologizing for talking about Transformers the movie instead of the 30th anniversary of Beast Wars. Oh man, well, maybe if they really wanted to do an apology tour, they would apologize for Beast Machines, or whatever reductive, unhelpful comments you can think of. Man, nobody hates Transformers more than Transformers fans. But Hasbro, I think, has been doing a really, really good job. Their meme game is strong. Their videos have been fun, and that's kind of why I wanted to start off here. So if you're not following the official Transformers channels on Facebook and Instagram, you're really missing out. And I have no idea why they have no Twitter presence, other than Twitter is a cesspool, and maybe collectively Hasbro leadership was like, nah. I don't know, which is funny because that's where a lot of Transformers fandom hangs out, is on Twitter. So it's a conundrum there. But like I said, I mean, the humor has been fun. I like the mild irreverence and sarcastic Gen X humor, like I've already talked about previously. But I wanted to start with this clip specifically that they shared recently on their social channels. And I don't want to say that John Hasbro is listening to 40 for 40, but it is fascinating to me because, like I said, I've got episodes in multiple stages of production, and it feels like every time they drop one of these viral videos, it directly ties into either something I have talked about or am talking about or will talk about very shortly. That's happened more than a couple times now. But anyway, this one has text in the video that says, quote, "When you accidentally choose the 3-star option, and that sets the scene where Hot Rod and Kup first enter the Quintesson throne room."
Like What's going on over there?
Has the Imperial Magistrate reached a verdict? I have. Guilty or innocent? Innocent. Feed him to the Sharkticons.
We've got to get a new travel agent.
And the caption for the post also says, quote, "Yeah, we're leaving a review for that one," end quote. And I wanted to include that here because, like, I wasn't going to do an entire episode just on that line, but man, it is so funny that this whole sequence is so quotable. I mentioned that I'm consolidating things here because, like I've mentioned before, for as brief, I guess, and as short, certainly as quick as Transformers the movie is, how fast it runs, it really does get awfully repetitive at times. The scene where victims are being fed to the Sharkticons in the Quintesson Pit of Judgment happens no fewer than 3 different times. And they're unlike other sequences we've talked about, like we talked about, like the universal greeting, how it kind of doesn't work one time and then it does work another time, and then it's a payoff here. This is a different type of repetitive storytelling in that, like, the same thing happens every time, so that by the time it happens to our named heroes, you, the viewer, know exactly what's going to happen and what to expect. But that also doesn't mean that I have to do 3 different episodes on it. But, you know, it's all variations of the same thing, a twisted judicial system where the innocent, not the guilty, are executed for the 5-faced monster's amusement, the aforementioned Quintessons, who are as weird and bizarre of any creatures in any kind of science fiction movie. Transformers or no, it's like, the Quintessons, with just by their nature of, like, they're kind of weird and squishy and biomechanical, and of course the 5 faces that spin. It is just something that I think comes from, I don't know, like this weird mind meld of the imaginations of both Ron Friedman and Flint Dille separately. Like, Ron's versions of Quintessons are very, very different than Flint's, as we'll get into when we kind of start getting into the alternate scripts. But still, it's, I don't know, just they're the type of weird alien creatures that are intentionally meant to give you the heebie-jeebies and make you uncomfortable, and I think they're very successful at that. So anyway, kind of continuing along through this, along the way, Kup and Hot Rod meet Kranix, the last survivor of Lithone, who we last saw narrowly escaping with his life in the opening scene of the movie, where his home planet is destroyed by Unicron. And after explaining the secret of the monster planet to the captured Autobots, Kranix too receives his grim sentence, but not before giving a banger of a defiant line that is actually a precursor of sorts to the moment that we're going to talk about today.
Spare me this mockery of justice!
And actually, let's stop down here for just a quick second, because I realized that I don't think we're going to talk about Kranix too terribly much, because we're basically kind of like brushing over or breezing past his huge exposition scene with Kup and Hot Rod. But the thing that I do like about Norman Alden's performance is Kranix is, I've made jokes about it before, but it's his inflection on certain words that have really left an impression upon me, like the way that he says like the savage Sharkticons and their cruel masters, the Quintessons. And even in this last little bit here where he's like, spare me this mockery of justice, he doesn't say justice, he says justice. And I don't know, there's something about that specific inflection and pronunciation that just kind of sticks with me. And I was going to do a little bit of toy talk in a little bit here, talking about the Quintessons and the Pit of Judgment and all that other stuff. But at long last, there is a Kranix toy in Studio Series 86. I don't have it yet, but that is like a holy grail item for a lot of people's collections, mine included. I really need to get this figure, and we'll talk about this when we get to his a larger scene in a couple weeks. But I love that he transforms, and I love his vehicle mode and the inspiration that comes from, because it's directly off the page, and it is just smooch Jeff's kiss. It's terrific. But we'll talk about that in a couple weeks. But I just since I was playing clips of it, I thought it would be fun to just kind of call out Norman Alden's vocal performance as the last survivor of Lithone. Oh, actually, that's the other thing too. I talked about inflection and pronunciation and things like that. Like there's not a slurring sound, not like he's got like a fat tongue or something like that, but there is a thickness.
Why have fake news when you can have cake news? I bet she's thick and tired of reading these comments.
To the way that he speaks. So when I was a kid and I saw this movie, and he's talking about being the he's like resisting the Quintesson bailiffs and all that, and before subtitles, I didn't know what half of this dialogue was. I mean, it probably wasn't even until I was a middle-aged man when I finally got my hands on these scripts and reading the lines, or watching DVDs with closed captioning and subtitles on there, that when he protests and says that he's the last survivor of Lithone, I promise you that is not the word that he says.
No, please! I'm the last survivor of Lithone! No!
I don't know what he's saying, but he is not saying Lithone. I think he just wants some Lipton tea or something. But this movie is rotten with mispronunciations that have led to all kinds of strange interpretations of what characters are actually saying, and it's actually caused some friction in the fandom from time to time, and usually my go-to to settle those types of arguments is to go to the scripts. And it's well, this is what Ron Friedman wrote. This is what Flint Dille wrote. And while that doesn't necessarily settle the arguments, it at least is something more definitive to me, rather than what somebody transcribes for captions and subtitles and closed captioning and things like that. Your mileage may vary, but regardless, poor Kranix meets his doom, and a whole bunch of movie happens before we intercut back to Kup and Hot Rod, and that is finally where we pick up now.
Before His Imperial Majesty delivers a verdict, would you like to beg for your lives?
Now, I want to stop there because I've always talked about, actually, I just talked about this a little bit ago, but one of the things I've said in various podcasts, including this one, is how Transformers the movie kind of rewired my vocabulary and even my manner of speaking to some extent. I've also talked about how certain phrases from the movie, that aren't specifically the huge quotable lines from the movie. It's I'm not running around saying one shall stand, one shall fall, or whatever. But there are phrases that I've talked about that do kind of worm my way into my day-to-day. And this is one of them.
It sometimes helps, but not often.
I mean, you may have even been out with me before where I've dropped that line. You know, I usually talk about that like with regards to fixing things. I remember there was a very specific time at work where somebody was having like a computer problem, and they were trying to figure out like their microphone input, and I gave a sarcastic suggestion. I think I may have even said like, well, if you try turning it on and off again, and I literally said, I'm like, it sometimes helps, shrug, but not often. And yeah, I've done that a couple times. It's usually with regards to making a suggestion for something that I know isn't going to work. But anyway, in this, so the scene continues, and I love this little bit where Hot Rod and Kup are talking, and Cup's kind of struggling a little bit.
I can't transform.
Hot Rod kind of whispers back to him,
Keep trying.
I don't know if it's Wally Burr's voice direction or something, but like it feels like the direction for this scene is for these characters to talk about like they're about to get caught with notes in class, like they're in the back of the classroom and they're just kind of like psh, 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 like whispering amongst themselves like they're about to get into trouble, and that's exactly what happens. Like the Quintesson yells at them,
Silence, or you'll be held in contempt of this court.
And then Hot Rod gives the line that we've been waiting this whole time for.
I have nothing but contempt for this court.
And then, of course, they are then dropped into the Quintesson Pit of Judgment. Surely our heroes are done for. Find out what happens next in a few weeks when we talk about the other music video segment featuring a song by Kick Axe. And so, yeah, so there it is. The scene is over for now, but the whole notion of having nothing but contempt for this court, I have seen that shared in GIF form or in video or screen grabs or whatever. Like, I think I have nothing but contempt for this court is amongst one of the most iconic quotable lines in all of Transformers the movie, and especially for my generation, our generation, the folks that, you know, us jaded Gen Xers. Like, this was used quite a lot, not to get, you know, super political here or whatever, but like there have been a number of decisions coming out of the Supreme Court. There have been a number of appointments to the Supreme Court that folks aren't exactly happy with. And I have seen versions of this same refrain over and over and over. I have nothing but contempt for this court. And that is the one of the special things, one of the special magic tricks of this movie, of Transformers the movie, is that something that we watched as kids, we can still derive thematic meaning and connection to even 40 years later. You know, I've talked about in other episodes that there are, you know, ways that I've connected with this movie as an adult that, you know, I could say I did as a kid, but, you know, and that was the other thing my buddy Kevin asked me about. He's like, well, did you really have all of these observations that you're talking about in the podcast as a kid? And my answer to that is, well, some of it, but not all of it. You know, it's takes that I've developed from watching this movie again and again, over and over, but more importantly, talking with different folks. Like there's been any number of times I've had lunches with my buddy Chandler, and you know, I told the story again. I'm not going to tell it again, but where, you know, I kind of compared relationship angst to Hot Rod and Kup trying to use the universal greeting on the Alicons. You know, it's like, well, I thought they were supposed to reciprocate, you know, that kind of thing, you know, and comparing it to, you know, what you can give versus what you want in a relationship. I've talked about, you know, Ultra Magnus kind of being ineffectual middle management and being thrust into a position that he wasn't prepared for. So I think that the I have nothing but contempt for this court, and even Kranix too, the, you know, spare me this mockery of justice. The legacy of this moment really is how a generation of kids and a generation of movie watchers kind of had their sense of justice kind of subverted a little bit. Like, I mean, I remember when I was this age, my great-grandmother, Graham, would watch nothing but like daytime courtroom dramas, like, you know, the People's Court, Superior Court, Divorce Court. I mean, this was years before Judge Judy. So, but I think it's funny, though, that a certain formats of TV shows continue. Like I you know, as I'm continuing my job search while I'm working part-time at my new job, I do click on the TV from time to time, and I'll see that like it's still that same rock power block of courtroom drama shows. You know, the shows are different now, the personalities are different, like, but there's still like a version of People's Court, and there's like, you know, Hot Bench or whatever. But my point being is, like, you know, so I'm watching these courtroom dramas, and I will confess to a certain degree of confusion about the meanings of words. It's like, what does guilty actually mean? What does innocent mean? You know, what does that actually mean? And, you know, it kind of reminds me of like a urban legend of sorts with regards to the Quintessons and Transformers. Like there are folks that will roll up to you on the playground and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that one episode where the Quintessons actually found the Autobots guilty and then they had to let them go. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. But it is just kind of funny to talk about, because you would think if the innocent are sentenced to execution, then you would think the inverse would be true. It'd be like, oh yeah, so guilty, case dismissed, that kind of thing, which is also funny too, because, like, you know, as an older adult, I also consume a whole lot of Law and Order programming, and I think I was trying to make a point about the difference between innocent and not guilty, but I think I really lost the thread. So I'm just going to drop that and move on. But regardless, at the end of the day, there is a rewiring of sorts in the minds and vocabulary of kids about even using those words, you know, innocent or guilty and things like that. Like, those are, you know, again, like I've talked about so many times already, it's kind of like slightly upper vocabulary terminology. And I think a lot of that comes straight from the Ron Friedman script, because, like, you know, while Flint Dille is very much a smart Renaissance person, his vocabulary is on a different wavelength than Ron Friedman's. So I think, like, a lot of the loquaciousness and the verbosity of the Transformers the movie comes from Ron Friedman. And I've really challenged myself to recontextualize Ron Friedman over the last several years. I forget how deep I've gotten into this story before, but I met Ron Friedman in 2019 at TFCon LA. It was actually his first convention appearance, and my buddies from the Autopod Decepticast had arranged an interview with Mr. Friedman. Caleb had like this long, lengthy email dialogue about, like, you know, getting like a manuscript for his then upcoming book and things like that. It's quite a saga that kind of it was a great story arc for the first third of their movie coverage. It's a very fun listen to go back to it. And, you know, like they tried to, you know, have like a WWF style fan fiction beef between Ron Friedman and Flint Dille. And anyway, it was really good stuff. Before I drift too much, my point being is my first encounters with Ron Friedman were disappointing. Now, while Ron is a Hollywood legend that has like all of these stories about Desi Arnaz and Stan Lee and the Marvel Action Hour and all of this old Hollywood stuff, even trying to read his book, it's as dense and impenetrable as the scripts themselves, as I read here in every episode. And what I realized through interviews, not just with my buddy Aaron for APDC, but also just like, when he would get on stage and talk at TF cons and interviews with other outlets, I came to the realization pretty early that there was not a lot there for me. I feel like my conversations with Flint have been far more productive in terms of getting stories about specifically the production and the story of Transformers, the movie, very specifically, because, for very obvious reasons. And I think because of the way Ron Friedman presented himself, I think I also kind of found that a bit off-putting and kind of really soured me to his works and his takes. But it's kind of in spending this much time with it and spending this much time with his scripts and really sitting and thinking and staring at the wall and considering where the things that are so special to me about this movie, where they come from, like the use of vocabulary, that comes from Ron. And for me to try to spend a portion of my fandom time trying to close that off, because I kind of went through that phase where I was kind of like, I don't know, like the Drake meme. It's like, putting the hand up towards Ron Friedman, but then changing it and pointing at Flint Dille, that kind of thing. I was Team Flint. If I was to choose between the Transformers the movie writers, but as I'm sitting here talking to you right now in this very moment, I'm realizing that there's a lot of that story that wouldn't exist in its current form if not for the mind and the imagination and the sensibilities of Ron Friedman. So I guess I will leave it there for now. 2026 marks the... No. I have tons of stuff left to talk about. Let's do a little bit of toy talk.
You think you're sent here to the store to stick to play with your toys?
I've mentioned the Quintesson execution chamber throne room thing. I've mentioned it labeled specifically as the Quintesson Pit of Judgment, and that comes from a very specific playset. No, it's not a playset, but it's a box set of toys that Hasbro put out, I want to say in 2020. It was certainly during COVID, and it was certainly an exclusive to their first quote-unquote PulseCon, where it was like, we were messing around with like virtual online conventions, PulseCon. Anyway, this was like amongst the first, if not the first, I don't remember, kind of PulseCon exclusive things, and it was a box set including like a cardboard diorama of sorts.
Now we're into the dregs. There's Ralph Wiggum's entry. Prepackaged Star Wars characters still in their display box? Are those the limited edition action figures?
What's a diorama?
I don't have it in front of me. It's on the opposite side of the house, but it's like it had the Quintesson Judge, the Quintesson Bailiff, a smaller figure of the Quintesson Prosecutor, the guy with like the 6 octopus arms, and a teeny tiny figure of Kranix, and then a smaller Sharkticon that was in the pit below. It's a very cool box set, and it kind of ticks a handful of boxes for a number of collectors, but it's just kind of funny that now that we're in the 40th anniversary and now we've got Kranix in deluxe class, that Quintesson Pit of Judgment set is kind of quaint in retrospect, but I still think it's very cool. And it is probably the contemporary item from Hasbro that is most singularly responsible for me getting into contemporary Transformers toy collecting. This exclusive box set thing is a precursor to Studio Series 86. So this was some time before that first wave of figures that included Hot Rod, Kup, Blur, and Jazz. I think those were the only ones in Wave 1. But anyway, like, and the thing that I said, and anybody that knows me has heard me talk about this too many times in terms of my box collecting ethos, in terms of like what I buy and display boxes instead of loose toys in my collection. That was the first toy, at least since I had become part of more of the larger Transformers fan community, that had a specific Transformers the movie call out on it, and it had the logo with like the offset pushed out 3D effect with the text, and having the orange to magenta gradient colorway like I've talked about so much in the past that is unique to the Transformers the movie on posters and things like that. And it's still, even now, the thing that I look for when I am buying things that are specifically themed as Transformers the movie for my collection. I remember there was a time when I was a teenager, I think it was Spencer's, I don't remember, maybe Spencer's Gifts, but I remember seeing a poster of Transformers the movie, and it's the movie poster with Ultra Magnus and all of those other characters shooting up at Unicron, but the lettering is incorrect. It's the 1984-1985 style with the red and silver, and I'm like, that ain't Transformers the movie. That's no. Now, eventually, that colorway has been used for more Transformers the movie stuff. But my point being is that the Quintesson Pit of Judgment was the first toy, at least in the era that I was collecting, that had the correct lettering and all of that. And it says inspired by the Transformers the movie. And I fell in love with it. Studio Series 86 launched shortly after that, and there's been no going back for me. And I hear rumors that this year in 2026, Studio Series 86 will end, and we'll see. But anyway, it was just kind of interesting to get these particular characters, which ironically enough still have not shown up in Studio Series 86. I just talked about Kranix. We've got Na the Sharkticon, but aside from them, none of these guys are currently in the Studio Series 86 action figure line. They did the Quintesson Judge in Earthrise. They did the Alicon in Earthrise also. They've also since put out troop builders of the Alicon in what was it, Buzzworthy Bumblebee, I think. Still, it was the Target exclusive stuff. I got 2 of them, but anyway, so I have a separate loose shelf with a couple Sharkticons and a couple Alicons and a loose Quintesson Judge, as well as my sealed Quintesson Pit of Judgment. But yeah, it would be interesting to see some of those weirder characters represented in Studio Series 86. It's very similar to what I've talked about with regards to the Unicron guys, Galvatron, Cyclonus, Scourge, Sweeps, that kind of stuff. It's still endlessly fascinating to me what characters are included and which ones are excluded, and how that just kind of makes it weird for collectors, especially box collectors myself, who want to keep their Studio Series 86 guys all in the all displayed in the same boxes. All right, so that's enough toy talk for now. Let's head across the pond and hear how these scenes all played out in the Lady Bird book storybook.
The warriors suddenly transformed into evil, shark-jawed creatures. They piled on top of the Autobots, then dragged them into a large complex where the two were locked in a barred cage. As the guards left, another prisoner looked through the bars of the adjoining cage.
What is this place?
Asked Hot Rod.
This is Quintesson,
was the reply.
It is the home of the Sharkticons who brought you here, and their masters, the Quintessons. They hunt down the enemies of Unicron, a monstrous thing which devours other worlds. I am the only survivor of the destruction of my home planet.
Yeah, we've seen it.
said Kup.
Now we know its name.
Suddenly, the Sharkticon guards appeared again. They seized the other prisoner and dragged him away.
I go to stand trial before the Quintesson ruler,
he cried.
But guilty or innocent, the sentence is always the same. Death!
Soon it was the turn of Kup and Hot Rod. Their arms were bound to their sides with energy bonds, which also prevented them from transforming. Then they were led into the courtroom. A Quintesson with a rotating, many-faced head sat upon a high throne. The prosecutors stood below and waved long tentacles as Kup and Hot Rod were led onto a platform projecting high above a dark, water-filled pit. The prosecutor addressed the figure on the throne.
Has your Imperial Majesty reached a verdict? Guilty or innocent?
Innocent,
said the figure on the throne, and the platform dropped down, hurling Kup and Hot Rod towards the pit far below.
I will never get tired of, in an episode where I've spent so much time talking about pronunciation and diction, I love how the narrator says Autobots. It's not Autobots, Autobots. But and ironically enough, for a UK production, I guess I was expecting more heavy accents. I don't know if I was expecting chimney sweep. It's fun. It's a fun presentation of the material, but yeah, I guess I was expecting something incredibly foreign sounding. Maybe if there was like an Australian version of the read-along storybook. But anyway, let's continue with alternate takes. Let's take a look at the storyboards and the August 5th, 1985 Flint Dilley revision of the script. All right, let's start on page 72, and this picks up, this is a little different than the finished film in that basically what happens is after the universal greeting doesn't work, Kup and Hot Rod immediately get jumped by Sharkticons, not Alicons, and they are taken to the Quintesson fortress. Page 72. Suddenly, the Sharkticons transform to their vicious mode and lunge at them. The two robots, taken by surprise, fall backwards. Pan from the fallen robots to an area behind a tree. For just a moment, we see a small yellow Autobot in robot mode. There, then, as quickly as we realize what it is, it transforms into auto mode and vanishes in a flash. It was Wheelie. The Sharkticon camp on Quintesson. Kup, Hot Rod, and Sharkticons. Sharkticons march Kup and Hot Rod into a holding pen within a walled compound. We follow them into the pen, we pull back and pan to establish that the entry possession is being watched by the Quintessons. Slender, spindly-framed robotic creatures with oversized five-sided heads, each side bearing a different mechanistic face with a different expression on each. Smiling, angry, grimacing, suspicious, and the fifth face is not yet to be seen. As Hot Rod and Kup are led to certain death in the Quintesson dungeons, harsh, dissonant, metallic, and terrifying music plays, underscoring the brutal evil they face. Kup reminds me of the Niter slave mines on Golgotha 7. Hot Rod, every place reminds you of someplace else. Kup, experience, lad, you should learn to appreciate it. Hot Rod, a lot of good it's done us so far. On Hot Rod and Kup, as Hot Rod looks around and reacts sharply, his POV, the Quintessons, as we feature the leader Quintesson who is taller and wears a different color robe from others. He is watching a rival of Kup and Hot Rod, and his faces rotate, so it goes from smiling face to suspicious face to angry face to furious grimace. Resume on Hot Rod and Kup as Sharkticons shove and prod them, jolting them into the holding pen and locking the gate. Then they install restraining bolts. That's a lawsuit.
He says the restraining bolt has short-circuited his recording system.
Hot Rod, I can't transform. Kup, they're restraining bolts, lad. Still a lawsuit.
He suggests that if you remove the bolt, he might be able to play back the entire recording.
Hot Rod, looking around, we've got to get a new travel agent. What is this place? Pan from his POV, a shadowed alcove-like hut, as a figure moves forward slightly and speaks in a harsh basso voice. It is Granix, We saw him in the first scene escaping from his planet when Unicron ate it. Kranix... Oh, this is hilarious. I wasn't going to get into this right now, and I'm not. But note in the Flint Dille script, in one line, it says Granix with a G, and then when it gives dialogue, it gives Kranix with a K. We'll come back to that. Kranix, the world of the savage Sharkticons and their cruel masters, the Quintessons. They hunt down those who try to escape the wrath of Unicron and put them on trial. Kup, but what if they're innocent? Kranix, guilty or innocent, the sentence is always the same. M-, death! Exclamation point.
Death! Deliverance for you for sure! Now there's nothing you can do!
Hot Rod, Unicron, who's Unicron? Kranix, a planet 6 times the size of this one that absorbs everything in its path. Kup, so that's the monster's name. Hot Rod, I wonder if there's any connection between it and Galvatron. Suddenly, a Quintesson guard roars in. Quintesson guard, that one! Exclamation point. All turn and look off, reacting as 2 guards thunder in, grab Granix with a G, and pull him back out the door. Another angle, including the lead, Quintesson, as he points at Kup and Hot Rod. Quintesson guard, soon you too shall receive your sentence. And I've got to stop there for just a quick sec to tell a very brief story about the time where I had one too many Jack and Cokes at TFCon Chicago, and Alpha Magnus was pulling around a cart with a projector showing Transformers the movie, and it happened to be right at this scene, and in my state, in my reverie, my celebration, I suppose, I was like, hey man, I wonder if it's you too shall receive your sentence, or if it's you too. Is it TWO or is it TOO? We litigated that in a episode of Two Mics Too Furious, and it is indeed TOO, not TWO. But for my ear at that point, I had heard it as the guard saying, actually it's the Quintesson prosecutor in the finished film, but saying like, you too shall receive your sentence, and I took it as UTWO. But yeah, no, it's TOO. Anyway, soon you too shall receive your sentence. Their POV out the window, the arena. Kranix, with a K, stands on what almost looks like a wide diving board over a watery parentheses or oily pit teeming with Sharkticons. I love when Flint talks to himself in the script. It's either watery or it's oily. Who could know? Lead Quintesson, jury, have you reached a verdict? Juror number 1, we have, Your Honor. Lead Quintesson to jury of Quintessons, guilty or innocent. I repeat, Kranix, spare me this mockery of justice. Lead Quintesson, I repeat, guilty or innocent. Jurors, guilty with 2 exclamation points. Jury's faces rotate to 5th expression, a death's head, on Granix with a G. Suddenly, the robot is dumped into a pit of teeming Sharkticons, and there is a mad frenzy. In moments, he is no more. Angle on Kup. He watches grimly through the bars. Kup, not the end I'd wish for, lad. I've always loved that line. In fact, I'm gonna drop in the audio here. I try not to monkey with the reading of the scripts. I try to keep my commentary to a minimum, and I try not to pepper in drops. But I really like this one.
Not the end I'd wish for, lad.
Okay, so we're going to jump over the intercutting. This is actually what happens in the final film, where Ultra Magnus and crew crash on the planet of junk, and the Junkions watch on. There's also a sequence here with the Dinobots that is pretty different from the final movie, as well as the confrontation between Galvatron and Unicron, where Unicron sets Galvatron back to the planet of junk to stalk Ultra Magnus and tear him apart and destroy the Matrix. Again, it's still funny as I'm talking about the movie, and I didn't clock this as much until I started doing sequences of the movie out of order that I realized how repetitive and how many times we do the same thing. Like poor Galvatron, like he runs back and forth across the galaxy a couple times. He's like, okay, cool, I got Ultra Magnus. No, you didn't. Okay, well, fine, I'll go back. Now I'm back. Now I have the Matrix. But anyway, we are going to jump back to the Quintesson courtroom on page 85. Cut to the Quintesson courtroom. Kup and Hot Rod stand on the platform over the Sharkticon pit. They are, quote-unquote, bound by restraining bolts. Angle on the Quintesson judge. Quintesson judge, before we deliver your verdict, would you like to beg for your lives? Angle on Kup and Hot Rod. Kup turns to Hot Rod. Kup, remember when you put me back together today? Hot Rod, sarcastic. Sure, that's all I can think about. Kup, I know what part you forgot. We'll come back to that later, I'm sure. Quintesson judge, silence or I'll hold you in contempt of this court. Hot Rod, I have nothing but contempt for this court. Angle on the Quintesson judges. Suddenly their heads swivel around to Death's heads. Not to be confused with Death's head, who is somebody else entirely. On Kup and Hot Rod, the platform drops away and they tumble. And I'm going to stop there because as I've already spoiled, we have a whole other scene where we're going to talk about what happens next. Now, it's time to get psychedelic with the second revised Ron Friedman draft script from May 2nd, 1985, and this will get into a little more detail about what his versions of the Quintessons are. And we're going to sort out why Kranix is sometimes referred to as Granix with a G. Page 102, cut to the Sharkticon camp on Quintesson, Kup, Hot Rod, and Sharkticons. As Sharkticons march Kup and Hot Rod into a holding pen within a walled compound, as we follow them into the pen, we pull back and pan to establish entry procession is being watched by the Quintessons, slender, spindly framed robotic creatures with oversized five-sided heads, each side bearing a different mechanistic face with a different expression on each, smiling, angry, grimacing, suspicious, and the fifth face is not yet to be seen. I wonder what that's going to be. Their bodies seem too frail to support the massive heads, and gleaming metal frames are attached to their thin shoulders to hold up the weighty heads. Kup reminds me of the Niter slave mines on Golgotha 7. Hot Rod, surly. Every place reminds you of someplace else. On Kup and Hot Rod, as Hot Rod looks around and reacts sharply. Hot Rod continuing. Holy lithium lilacs! His POV, the Quintessons, as we feature leader Quintesson, who is taller and wears different color robe from others. He is watching a rival of Kup and Hot Rod, and his face rotates so it goes from smiling to suspicious face to angry face to furious grimace. Hot Rod, if they had a handsome contest here, nobody would win. Resume on Hot Rod and Kup as Sharkticons shove and prod them, jolting them into the holding pen and locking the gate behind the palisaded walls. Kup shouts as he gets jolts from the prod, I hope you get a toothache in every fang, you BB-brained rattletrap. Rattletrap?
There's one in every town.
Hot Rod, looking around, we got to get a new travel agent. Woo! What kind of place is this? It's what you get when you choose the 3-star option. Pan from his POV, a shadowed alcove-like hut, as a figure moves forward slightly and speaks in a harsh basso voice. It is Granix, with a G. He steps into the light, and we see he's a robot made of granite and stone parts, cracked and chipped on several places, and he steps forward. Several other pathetic prisoners also step out to be seen. They are all Autobot Robotoid-type creatures, and all show signs of abuse and neglect. Granix, a place of execution if you're lucky, raises hand in greeting. I am Granix, rector of the planet Lithone. Rector? I gotta cut that out. I'm sorry. I literally just made myself laugh. That's so stupid. Okay. Rector of the planet Litho. Rector. Okay, all right. Kup. We're Autobots of Cybertron, now of Earth. I'm Kup, and this youngster is Hot Rod. Granix, motioning Kup and Hot Rod to his side, pointing as he speaks. They call this hideous world Quintesson. If you have hopes of surviving, abandon them now. Pan from his POV as he tells about what he's pointing at. I'm sorry. I should probably take a break so I get the giggles out of me. I'm still laughing at Rector. It's not my fault. Granix. The Sharkticons are a primitive type of cannibals. They serve only their accursed masters, five-faced Quintessons themselves. On this, we are close to Quintesson Sentry in Guard Tower as his face rotates, changing from smile to suspicion to anger to grimace.
Nothing can kill the grimace. All right, we're done here.
Hot Rod, I only count 4 faces. Resume on Granix, Kup, and Hot Rod as they walk into shadow of prisoner hut. Granix shudders. Fortune grant that's all you'll ever see. The Quintessons are feeble, but possessed of a cruel intelligence. They send their Sharkticons out to round up any unlucky enough to land here, then put them on trial for trespassing. Hot Rod, but what if you're innocent? Granix and the prisoners laugh hollowly. Granix with a G. Guilty or innocent makes no difference. The sentence is always the same. M-. To be eaten by the Sharkticons! ! Suddenly to Hot Rod, and don't worry, they find everyone delicious! ! Quintesson, that one! ! All turn and look off, reacting. Their POV, the Quintessons we saw before, as first Quintesson points through the open door of holding pen while Sharkticon guards gnash teeth and salivate on either side of him. He is pointing at Granix, who is aghast. Granix, no, have pity. Quintesson, carry out the sentence. Clacking and chattering, the Quintesson guards come for Granix, who falls to his knees in terror, and other prisoners back off into shadowed alcove in their hut. Granix, I am the last survivor of the expedition from Lithone, the planet of Marvel. The planet of Marble. Let me function. Hot Rod to Kup, you get the one on the left, the other one's mine. As Sharkticons approach, Kup belts one and Hot Rod drop kicks the other, battering another Sharkticon guard who tries to use cattle prod device, but a bunch of Sharkticons drive them away from Granix with their cattle prod shockers, herd them to one side as they haul Granix off. Another angle, including the lead Quintesson as he points at Kup and Hot Rod. Quintesson, suit. Holy shit! Okay, sorry, I didn't read ahead. As he points to Kup and Hot Rod, Quintesson, soon you too shall receive your sentence. TWO, ladies and gentlemen, not TOO. Holy smoke, I was not expecting to unpack that today. Like, I read these scripts ahead, but like, I forget. I didn't know until I cracked this open right now. God damn it. Oh, wow. I was not expecting this. All right, so another angle, including the lead Quintesson, as he points at Kup and Hot Rod. Quintesson, soon you too, TWO, shall receive your sentence. It would be well for you to watch so you will know what fate to expect! ! To Sharkticons, bring them! ! Sharkticons herd Kup and Hot Rod along, and we follow them to the arena. A fenced-in ring into which Granix is thrust and then handed a long-handled stun stick, the end of which delivers an explosive electrical charge. Kup and Hot Rod are herded to the edge of the ring. Lead Quintesson as he faces Granix gravely, his face rotating. Lead Quintesson, trespasser, hear me. Your punishment is prescribed by Quintesson law. extermination by consumption. Oh man, consumption. Isn't that something that was like old-timey, like cholera or something? Didn't you get consumption on the Oregon Trail? Anyway, his face rotates to its fifth expression, a death's head. Not to be confused with death's head. Kup. I've been waiting. You might even say I've been waiting an eternity for this to read this line because it just cracks me up so much. His face rotates to its fifth expression, a death's head. Kup, the fifth face! Granix reacts as Sharkticons come at him from all sides. There are 4 of them. All right, you monsters, all right. I may be finished, but some of you shall perish with me. So saying, he spins to one side, dodges rush of Sharkticon, and uses stun stick to detonate head of Sharkticon, killing it, turning and smashing at another Sharkticon, which nips at his leg, and using stun sticks to blast him in half, but other 2 Sharkticons leap on him and quickly gobble him up in a few huge bites, what's left of him fighting to the last. On Kup and Hot Rod as they react. Kup, not the end I'd wish for, lad. Hot Rod, then we better figure something out before we're called into the arena. I didn't break my transducer to pass cosmic algebra just to wind up as main course at a Sharkticon banquet. Now, from here, it gets very different, but also very much the same, because the beats of the story are still very similar. After this, we cut back to Ultra Magnus and crew on the junk planet, and then we intercut with the scene with the Dinobots, kind of confronting more Quintessons, and then you have the scene between Unicron and Galvatron, all of which we saw in the finished film, and all of these versions in the Ron Friedman script are greatly expanded, much like we've seen in other sequences like I just read. But the next sequence that picks up is going to be very different than the Demolition Derby scene that we're going to get into in another few weeks, because keeping in mind that in the Ron Friedman version, this whole thing about the Quintesson Pit of Judgment is very different. There's no platform. There's no dropping people in. There's no, guilty or innocent. Innocent. Feed him to the Sharkticons. There's no water. So it's all very different. But it's kind of fascinating also that it is still kind of the Quintesson Pit of Judgment. It's just I don't know. I remember was it last year or year before, Gladiator 2. The sequel nobody asked for, but is really actually kind of fun. If you're a Denzel Washington completionist, check out Gladiator 2. He's really fun in that. But anyway, like they show the Roman Colosseum where they fill it with water, and there's like naval battles, and they put in sharks and stuff. It's completely ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. But anyway, that's what kind of the Quintesson Pit of Judgment reminds me of, and actually kind of looking at that box set, the toys I have that I was talking about earlier, there's no water in there, so it's just kind of like a cardboard semicircle. In reading this Ron Friedman script, I can visualize the same type of architecture, I suppose, where it's just an empty pit. Like, you can either have water in it or not. In this case, it gets more gladiatorial, where Granix, the stone marble guy, who, as had I not recently re-listened to that episode, I would steal this joke for myself and think I was passing it off as something original. That was that whole damn tangent that I was talking about earlier about, like, I've been listening to other people talk about this movie also, and I think a lot of it just kind of like seeps in. So I am sure there are times that I've passed off other people's takes as my own, because like in my memory, I don't remember listening to it somewhere else. It's just shareware, just stuff that I know. But anyway, my buddy Anthony Bricali, TFU.info, in that episode of Transformers University where he talked about the Ron Friedman script, again, doing an excellent job of summarizing some of the crazy, different, fun things. He accurately refers to Granix with a G, referring to him as a rock lord.
Rock Lord,
because he's he's made of granite and marble and all that stuff. So very fun, very cool. But anyway, when we get to the next sequence in a few weeks, this Ron Friedman stuff is going to continue to be violently different. And I might even read this passage about the Dinobots as well, because there isn't going to be any other space for it. But we will come to that when we come to it. And again, regarding these cited works, I was just talking about it a moment ago, but I have been revisiting old episodes of Transformers University hosted by my friend Anthony Bricali, TFU.info, and he's got several terrific episodes, several of which I actually contributed to that I almost completely forgot about, diving even deeper into the Transformers the movie, including a really fun summary of the Ron Friedman script. Now, while brevity is not my first best strength, it is certainly one of Anthony's gifts. So I'd encourage you to check that one out if you like what I'm doing here, along with Autopod Decepticast, who I outright stole this entire bit from, where I'm reading the alternate versions of the scripts. Their show is in chronological order, though, throughout the movie, so it might come across slightly less disjointed for you now, as I'm kind of like picking and choosing these different scenes from the scripts and from the movie. So with that being said, let's move on to the mailbag. Nope, wait, never mind. I no mailbag today. Instead, I have some Transformers the movie news. I have a huge press release from Hasbro that I would like to share with you here today. Back on May 18th, Hasbro made the least surprising announcement of the Apology Tour so far. Hasbro continues worldwide Apology Tour with 40th anniversary theatrical return of The Transformers, the movie. Because some moments deserve to be experienced on the big screen, even if they still hurt. This is an official press release from Hasbro. Nationwide 4K theatrical release beginning on Transformers Day, September 17th through the 21st, 2026, with day and date international footprint to be announced. Dateline, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and Denver, Colorado, May 18th, 2026. Hasbro, a leading games, IP, and toy company in collaboration with Fathom Entertainment, the leading specialty distributor of content to theatrical partners worldwide, is bringing The Transformers, the movie, back to theaters for its 40th anniversary, inviting fans to relive the action, the music, and yes, that moment. The loss of Optimus Prime remains one of the most talked about moments in franchise history. As part of the year-long Apology Tour, Hasbro is leaning into that shared experience, bringing fans together to grieve, heal, and reminisce at special fan events all year long, including the film's return to theaters. Beginning September 17th, 2026, in honor of Transformers Day, the beloved 1986 animated film presented in 4K will roll into theaters across the U.S. with a wide theatrical release through September 21st with a special limited-run cinema experience. Select international markets are expected to launch day and date with the U.S. Quote, "For decades, Transformers fans have carried this film with them, which is a testament to its storytelling and lasting cultural impact," said the Vice President of Global Brand and Franchise Strategy Action Brands Hasbro. Quote, "Bringing it back to theaters is an opportunity for longtime fans to relive it together and for new audiences to experience a defining chapter in Transformers history," end quote. Quote, "Few films have had a stronger and more lasting legacy than The Transformers the movie," said Ray Nutt, Chief executive officer for Fathom Entertainment. Even 40 years later, this animated feature film remains a defining moment for fans across generations. Fathom is thrilled to team up with Hasbro and give audiences the opportunity to experience the Transformers the movie together in 4K on the big screen. Originally released in 1986, The Transformers the movie marked the franchise's first feature film and raised the stakes in ways audiences did not see coming. What started as an epic battle between Autobots and Decepticons quickly became something more, introducing the Autobot Matrix of Leadership, the planet-devouring Unicron, and a turning point that left a generation of fans emotionally unprepared for what a children's film could deliver. Optimus Prime's fall in a final showdown with arch-nemesis Megatron remains one of the most controversial moments in franchise history. 4 decades later, fans are still talking about it. Now they can experience it all over again, together in theaters, this time knowing exactly what's coming and choosing to show up anyway. The film features an unforgettable voice cast, including Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, Frank Welker as Megatron, Orson Welles as Unicron, Judd Nelson as Hot Rod Rodimus Prime, Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron, Eric Idle as Wreck-Gar, and Robert Stack as Ultra Magnus. Tickets for the Transformers the Movie 40th anniversary will be available later this summer and at participating theater box office. Theater locations are subject to change. For more information and to be among the first notified when tickets go on sale, please visit Fathom Entertainment. Alongside the cinema experience, fans can experience additional anniversary surprises across toys, merchandise, publishing, and more, because 40 years later, it still hits like a truck. For the latest on the Transformers brand, including toys and entertainment, follow at Transformers Official on Instagram, at Transformers on X, at Transformers on Facebook, and at Transformers Official on TikTok. And I want to give a huge shout out to my buddy Anthony for slipping this press release under my door so that I can read it in its entirety. And I also want to give a shout out to Ben Yee over at Ben's World of Transformers, BWTF.com, for publishing this press release in its entirety, one of the few outlets to actually do so. So there you have it. So if you have any questions about what the depth and breadth of the apology tour actually is, I mean, this statement about the movie aside, if you want to know what the apology tour is, this is it. I mean, I think they explained it incredibly well. And with that press release came another one of those viral videos that I was telling you about. This time was Kup telling his old war stories. And it's like, and the dust was really thick, and like the dust parts. And it's this beautifully illustrated poster of a very dead Optimus Prime with the inscription that says, 40 years later, it still hits like a truck. And it's dead Optimus, and it's got reflected in his chest windows the faces of Ultra Magnus, Kup, Hot Rod, Blur, RC, Perceptor, all of those that were there when Optimus Prime passed. There's a really cool post from artist Marcelo Mater talking about his process of this. I'm not going to read it here, but it was very cool, and it's a very nice piece of art, and it's a very, very cool poster that I want for myself very, very much. But with this video, I reshared it on my social medias, and on my personal Facebook, I shared this quote: I would like to take this opportunity to formally petition Majestic Bay Theaters to carry the 40th anniversary Fathom event screening of the Transformers the movie. I've been telling the story for years how I first saw the movie at the Old Bay Theater in Ballard in August of 1986, and how it would be such a powerful, full circle moment if they were to ever show the movie there again. Did I mention the screening is 2 days after my birthday? I really, genuinely, seriously want to see if I could get this done. And I tagged both Majestic Bay Theaters and Fathom Entertainment. And I've told this story countless times. Obviously, I saw the movie 7 years old, at the Bay Theater in Ballard, which is a neighborhood in Seattle, an old neighborhood in Seattle. And the Bay Theater was closed, I think, in the late 90s. I'm not going to bother to look it up now, but basically the old building was demolished and a new movie theater was built in its place. So it's a brand new building, but it's in the same place. And it is now being run as the Majestic Bay Theaters. It's a multi-screen Cineplex, independently run and operated. And they do all kinds of retro night showings as well as, the latest feature films. I've never seen a movie there at the Majestic Bay since they reopened. It's too far out of my way for where I live and where I go. But I had always told myself, and I've been telling myself this since Fathom Events started doing these showings, and it does kind of crack me up in that press release, because both Hasbro and Fathom Events are trying to make it seem like they've never put Transformers the movie back out in theaters before. And I don't know, man, these restoration anniversary screenings are like the bus or the train. If you miss one, just wait, another one will be along soon enough. And I'm pretty sure the last showing was in 4K also, but that's neither here nor there. My point being is that they've put Transformers the movie out in theaters. Gosh, this will be the third time in 10 years, I think. And every time I always take a look at what the Majestic Bay is showing, and if they're going to show it, always with the promise to myself that if they show it, I will go. I will go out of my way and I will make it happen. Because like I said in this Facebook post, wow, what a full circle moment that would be. But yeah, so in this post, I tagged Majestic Bay Theaters and Fathom Entertainment, and basically I used this kind of as a opening salvo to a plea to see if they could run this, knowing that they've never shown it before. Like none of the either two Fathom event screenings were at the Majestic Bay, and I had fully intended to follow this up with perhaps an email or some other correspondence, maybe even a phone call, maybe even going there to show up and talk to the theater manager or owner or whoever I could. And, maybe wield whatever little power I have in this fandom to say like, hey man, if you do this, I will support it with every ounce of muscle I have, because there is a large contingent of Transformers fans and a strong Transformers fandom in the Pacific Northwest and specifically in the Seattle area. And I get the feeling I could rally a lot of friends to want to go see this. And incidentally, Seibfest Northwest is coming up in July. Go to seibfestnw.com for the latest information on that. But this the story has a little bit of a not bittersweet, but sour ending. They responded to me, and I wasn't expecting a response this quick or so soon. Like it was shoot, I want to say the next day after I posted it. So from the Majestic Bay Theaters, they write, quote, "Unfortunately, we won't be able to fit this into our schedule, which breaks my heart because this is such a wonderful request!" exclamation point. And there's a part of me that wants to respond, not being snarky, but saying like, because I mean, I do understand they don't show Fathom event screenings. Like they have their own curated retro nights. Like they just showed Jurassic Park not too long ago. So I understand. I don't not understand. But there's a part of me that wants to reach back out to them and say, hey man, I totally understand. Thank you for responding to me. But if there's ever a time in the future, maybe not for the 40th anniversary now, but because I don't know who owns the rights to Transformers the movie. I wonder if there is a time where they could have a separate, unconnected from Fathom or Hasbro, a retro night showing Transformers the movie, and then I can run out the guns and bring out the full muscle of the Mike Cybertronians and the Transformers fan groups here in the Seattle area to pack out the house. But I don't know. I'm willing to accept your suggestions on what I should do about this. Should I let it go? Should I pursue it? I think I'm only disappointed because they got back to me. I almost wish they had ignored me. But yeah, I mean, are you going to check out this screening? Are you interested in seeing Transformers the movie in theaters again? How many times are you going to go? I talked about the last time the Fathom Events screening came around. I saw the movie twice in 4 days, and I was cooked. Like I had to take a break from it. So, I hopefully I've learned from that experience, because I don't know how many showings they're going to have between September 17th and the 21st, but I get the feeling it's going to be a couple. And if I don't have to stress about going to see it at the Bay Theater, who knows? Maybe I'm just one and done with my buddy Chandler this time. Time will tell. 2026 marks the 40th anniversary of the Transformers the movie, and to celebrate that major milestone, I will be counting down my favorite, most iconic moments of the movie that has had such a huge influence on my life and the content I create today. That was episode number 11, moment 30. I have nothing but contempt for this court. I'd like to thank you so much for listening and for making me a part of your day and supporting this project. And if you'd like to hear more from me, check out the Mike Seibert Radio podcast right here on this feed. And for even more Transformers fun, check out our other show, Two Mikes, Too Furious, where Michael Anders and I reviewed Transformers Animated one episode at a time. Please like, share, rate, review the show, and let me know what you think of this episode. My name is Mike Seibert. This has been 40 for 40, Transformers the Movie. And until next time, till all are one, make good choices. 40 for 40, Transformers the Movie is a production of Mike Seibert Radio and is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Cited works include scripts written by Ron Friedman and story consultant Flint Dilley, sourced from the Sunbow Marvel Archive. Storyboards by various artists, trailers, and other audio sourced from tfraw.com. More information can be found at tfwiki.net. Follow me on social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and right into the mailbag, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.
Before His Imperial Majesty delivers a verdict, would you like to beg for your lives? It sometimes helps, but not often.
I can't transform. Keep trying.
Silence, or you'll be held in contempt of this court.
I have nothing but contempt for this court.